On this edition of the Gallifreyan Gunner, we're going to take a look at my GSG-16 1 year later and some of the mods I've been doing to it to make it a little more MP5 and a little less MP5-ish. Welcome back to my channel. Back in June of 2021, about a year ago, I walked into my local Cabela's, ostensibly to look at a Ruger 1022 that they had on sale in the gun vault. While I was looking around, I came across the GSG-16, which is an MP5 sort of clone put out by German Sports Guns. Now, I've always been a bit of an MP5 fanboy. I remember first seeing it when the SAS stormed the Iranian embassy in London back in the 80s, and then of course, you know, it was featured in Die Hard and movies like that. And it was on sale at the time, so I happily picked it up and brought it home. And at the time I did a couple of YouTube videos, which are on my channel here, talking about my first impressions, and I took it out to the range. And I thought what I'd do now is 1 year later, I'll talk about how it's held up, some of the problems that came up and some of the solutions that I've come up with it, and then talk about some of the modifications I've made to the rifle, because one thing that I've found is that the GSG-16 community, there's a lot of people who like to modify their firearms to make them more tactical, or another group want to make them more like the original firearm, the MP5. So in this video, we're going to talk about how it's held up, some of the modifications that I've made to start turning my GSG-16 into an MP5A2 clone, and kind of walk you through some of the process. I just managed to pick up a pistol grip from the old GSG-5. It was an OEM spare part. And I thought I'd show you how easy it is to actually do modifications on this rifle. So let's get started. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is not to be used for instructional purposes. Care should be taken whenever working on any firearm, and all local laws should be followed at all times. The use of the words upgrade and modification in this video refer only to cosmetic changes and not to anything that alters the function or legal classification of the firearm. So before we go any further, we're just going to show that this rifle is safe. So we're going to take the magazine out. Obviously, there's no rounds in the magazine, and the chamber flag shows that there is nothing in the rifle, and the safety's on. So if you'd seen my original videos when I took it out to the range, you'll know that one of the problems that I had right off the bat was when I would insert a new magazine, that when I pulled back the cocking lever, the bolt wouldn't go forward unless I kind of racked it a couple times, and then it would go forward. And what I discovered just from the community was that actually in the rifle there is a bar which is kind of spring activated, that is the bolt hold open, and it's actually activated by on the magazine the little I guess loading assist knobs here, and when the magazine's empty, that would actually push the bar up and hold open the bolt. Problem is that the spring that keeps that bolt down, keeps pressure on that bolt, on that bar, is very easily lost. Once you take the bolt and bolt carrier out, the spring is just sitting in a little channel, and it's very easy for it to fall out and lose. And that's actually what I ended up doing. When I cleaned the rifle after the first time I had it out on the range, before I filmed my video, that I cleaned it and I lost the spring. So what was happening was I put in a new magazine and I pull the cocking lever back, but it only had gravity to push the bolt hold open bar down. And it wasn't happening all the time, so that's why I was getting stuck open. So I reached out to Blue Line Solutions, who actually distribute the rifle in Canada, and I got them. I actually purchased 2 springs, one to replace the one that I lost, and then a spare in case I lost it again. And I found that actually solved the problem. The only time I have a problem with that bar now is that another issue with this rifle is that, obviously being semi-automatic, the action gets very dirty, and I found that bar, because it's kind of flush on the surface of the receiver, if you don't clean it on a regular basis, that actually the bar can get stuck. So between cleaning and replacing that spring, I've actually found it's actually getting pretty reliable now. I've had very few problems with it. Now, one of the surprising things about the GSG-16 is it's actually become an incredibly popular rifle in Canada. I don't think I can go to a range these days without seeing at least one other person with them. And most people, they use the stock version. So, it's got the M-lock handguard on it with the pick rail attachments. It's got that weird sliding stock with the place that you can put store your extra mags in, that sort of thing. And once I kind of, got the rifle and started looking around YouTube and other places like that, I found that there's a lot of people who do modifications to this rifle. For example, I belong to a GSG-16 Facebook group that you can find all kinds of information. People show, they've actually just taken the stock one and made it like tactical, adding all the attachments on it, things like that. But a lot more people are actually going out and getting airsoft parts or 3D printed parts to add onto the rifle. Now, as I mentioned, the GSG-16 started life out as a 1-to-1 clone, basically 22 caliber clone of the MP5. So even despite all of the cosmetic changes they made to the rifle, adding Picatinny rail to the top, changing the cocking lever or the cocking tube, all those sorts of things like the pin placement remains the same. So you can go out and being a 22, it's very low recoil and that sort of thing. So you can actually go out and buy airsoft parts for the MP5 airsoft rifles, and they'll, with little or no modification, they'll fit right on the rifle. Also, there's kind of a underground market out there for used MP5 GSG-5 spare parts. For example, I happen to be on Numeric, the gun company out of the States, and they had a supply of the original GSG-5 lower receivers, stripped of course, but they fit perfectly onto the GSG-16. So one of the things I'm going to be doing today is I'm actually going to be showing you all of the modifications that I've made so far, but we're going to actually swap the trigger pack over from the stock GSG-16 lower to this GSG-5, and I just thought it'd be interesting to show you how easy that actually is. So stripping the rifle down is very similar to the actual MP5. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the chamber flag out. Once again, let's prove that it is safe, and we are going to run the bolt forward. And next we're going to take off the stock. Now, in this case, the stock is held on by the original screws. I have actually got some HK pins on the way. I managed to find one that I'm using in the lower receiver right now. But for right now, I've half undone it, so it makes it easier to come out. And you remove the stock. Okay, and then we have to take out the bolt and bolt carrier. So you can find lots of places on the internet where you can see how to strip this, but simply there's a little back plate that kind of holds it on that you need to take off first. So little hex nut. It's quite long, so it does take a while to come out. Okay. So the little plate comes out. Okay. and take out the pin for the lower receiver, and the whole thing basically comes apart like that. And then that's the bolt-to-bolt carrier right there. That one side. Now we're going to be focusing on this, so let's get this swapped out. Just before we get started here, I just thought I'd show you that bolt hold open that I was telling you about. This bar here is the bolt hold open bar, and then you can see inside that spring. Now that spring is basically held in by tension. There's nothing really particularly holding it in. So when you're taking out the bolt, when you're cleaning the rifle and you're flipping it over and doing things like that, it can actually fall out pretty easily. So like I said, I had to buy a new one myself. But if you find that your GSG-16, when you put in a new magazine, is not the bolt is not going forward, take a look to see if you are missing that. So what we have here is we've got the GSG-16 lower receiver. As you can see, it's it's got things like the finger grooves and it's got things like that to make it distinctive from the MP5, so to speak. And then we have the Legacy GSG-5 strip lower with the selector here, and we're going to just swap things out here. Now we're just going to put this aside here for a second. So to strip the lower receiver, the first thing you need to do is there's a little plate here in the bottom of the pistol grip that we have to remove first. Just take off the screws. Remove the plate. Now inside here there's actually a weight. Let me get this to come out. There we go. The only thing that's for is just to add some heft to the rifle. I understand a lot of people just remove these to make the rifle lighter. I actually kind of like having a bit of heft, so we're going to move that over to the new rifle. And next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to, we have to remove the selector switch, and that's just held on by a little screw here, set screw on the one side. Just undo that. And just kind of got to work these apart here. Pretty tight fit. Okay, so we're going to hang on to those just in case we need them later. And then finally inside here there's a screw inside the pistol grip that we need to take out. So we'll remove that. Okay, I'll just set that aside. Now, when removing this, from what I've seen people doing it, a couple of things we have to be aware of. One is this side plate here is actually only held on by basically friction and the spring on the side of the trigger pack. And there's a couple of brass grommets in here that we have to make sure that we don't lose because we're going to need to put them back in place. So we're just going to carefully, very carefully slide the trigger pack out, and that's it. That's basically the guts of the lower. So we're going to take the new lower and we're just going to slide this in. Now, there we go. It's just that easy. So we'll put this back in the pistol grip here. Okay. And we'll take the new selector and we'll put that in. side. Okay. And we're going to put the little screw back in. Keep it secure. Okay, and just before we go any further, we're just going to make sure that this works. This is the magazine disconnect. So we're going to cock the hammer, make sure, even though it's on fire, that without the magazine disconnect it's not going to go forward. Okay, the hammer goes forward. Now we're going to put this on safe, and nothing happens. Okay, so we're good to go there. All right, and the last thing we need to do is replace this weight and the plate at the bottom here. So let's get that done. Okay, there you go. It's just that easy. We have the new one and the stripped old one. Okay, so let's put the rifle back together then. So to kind of prove my point here, while I was rearranging these parts to show you how this thing actually reassembles, the bolt hold open spring came out. So we're just going to pop this back in here. Okay, and it falls out really easily just because it's basically a friction feed. Now you don't have to worry about that once the rifle's assembled, because the bolt carrier group actually holds that in place. It retains it, so unless you have it apart for cleaning or whatever, you don't have to worry about it. But when you do have it apart, keep an eye on that spring because it goes missing quite easily. So first thing we do is you just pop in the bolt carrier group. Okay, and then before it's fully in, you put the lower on and then just slide it forward and then push the bolt carrier in the rest of the way. I'm just going to pop in the pin here just to keep everything in place while I put the back plate in. So that's the back plate, and it basically just goes into a slot here, and then there's the little bolt here that goes in. So we'll just put that in and tighten it. Okay. And then we have the stock, and we'll put the screw in. Now for the time being, I'm just going to finger tighten this other side. We'll tighten that in more before I put it away, but just for the purposes of this video, we'll just do it basically finger tight. And there we go. That's complete. So let's take a look at some of the things I've done to the rifle here. So as you've already seen, I have a fixed buttstock. This is 3D printed. All of my 3D printed parts comes from a company called Hardline Tactical out of Ontario. So I have the fixed buttstock, I have the handguard, and then we have an MP5 style cocking tube replacing the one that was already on there. And then replacing the stock cocking handle, I actually found this one. This is an MP5, OG MP5 style, that's made by ICS. That's an airsoft part. What I have coming is I have some more pins, so I can swap out the final one of these screws just to make it easier to strip down for cleaning. And I have an MP5 style retractable buttstock just in case I'm feeling like I want to reenact some Die Hard or something like that. And that's probably all I'm going to do to this rifle. I've retained the section of pick rail that's on the GSG-5. It doesn't quite, when you remove the front cocking tube, you end up with this little blank area, which doesn't look too bad, but Hardline Tactical actually does a replacement cover for this that includes a drum sight. Purely more for decorative reasons than anything like that, just to make it look proper, but to this point I've actually just been using this Feyachi red dot that I picked up off of Amazon. And there we have it. My MP5 A2 clone is complete. Having a lot of fun with this rifle, and look forward to using it for a long time to come. I'll probably do another video in the future just to let you know how this is holding up, if I've done any more modifications, that sort of thing. But in the meantime, please check out the other videos on my channel. Like and subscribe, hit that notification bell. And I'm also posting these videos on Utreon, so if in the future YouTube decides it doesn't want to carry any more firearms content, you can check me out over there as well under Gallifreyan Gunner. Okay, see you in the future. Take care.